Hello and welcome to the Power BI July 2020 update. In this video, we'll explore what's new this month and see some demos of the highlights. We have several new updates for you in the reporting section. First, you can now include a legend for the data colors that have been conditionally formatted by color scale. This legend can help clarify the range of data that the color gradient represents. Rian will show us an example of how to use this feature.
This month, we're introducing the gradient legend, a feature to help clarify the meaning of color gradients in your visuals. So let's say we've got our sales data on this column chart, and we'd like to conditionally format it to, let's say, to color the bars to represent the number of units sold, right? Which is a little bit different from the money made from sales in the y-axis. So to do that, we'll go into data colors in the formatting pane. We will open the conditional formatting dialog, and we will set it to color the bars along units sold, along a gradient light blue to dark blue. Sounds good. We'll hit OK. And now you can see that the data has been colored, where light blue is the least number of units sold and dark blue is the most number of units sold. But when we give this visual, when we put it in a report and give it to our users, it's not easy to tell what those colors mean unless we actually tell them what the colors mean. But to solve that in the visual, now we can use the gradient legend. So to do that, let's simply turn on the legend option here in the formatting pane, and a legend shows up to help give us that clarity. We can also format that legend if we want to put it anywhere else, if we want to change the title or the name of the legend. Here we have it, we call it units because it's units sold, but we can call it something else. Or, change the color of the font or the font family or font size. So we can format it however we want. We can position it where we would like it. And now users know that the colors being represented here show units sold. So keep in mind that you can't both conditionally format your data colors and split that data using the legend field well, because the legend field well already colors your data by category. Your data can't be colored in two ways at once. The gradient legend feature is enabled for bar, column, and scatter charts. So that's the stacked bar chart, stacked column chart, clustered bar chart, clustered column, 100% stacked bar and column charts, and the scatter chart. We hope you enjoy.
Next, we're expanding the slicer's formatting options by bringing you the ability to further customize their header text. Last month, we made the hierarchical slicer generally available, which included improvements to slicers in general. We're adding to that this month with a new capability, which you can find under the slicer header card in the formatting pane. By default, the title of the slicer is based on the field inputs, but you can now input your own title. A useful feature if you have several fields in your slicer and you want a shorter, custom header text. Next, we're excited to announce that the relative time filter is now generally available. We released this feature as a public preview back in April, and we appreciate all of the feedback you've given throughout this preview period. Keep providing us feedback as we continue to release updates to enrich your reporting. Moving on to the analytics section, we have a variety of updates to Q&A, including new field synonyms, visual names and suggested synonyms, underlines to indicate ambiguous terms, and updates to the Q&A pop-out. Serena will walk us through these changes.
Field synonyms is the newest addition to Q&A setup, where you can manage the synonyms for tables and fields and include or exclude specific tables and fields from Q&A. The field synonyms section shows a list of all the tables in your data model. Turning off Include in Q&A for a table will hide everything in that table from Q&A. When you expand a table, you'll see the table name and all the fields with their terms and suggested terms. You can decide to exclude specific fields without having to hide them in your data model. Q&A prioritizes terms over suggested terms. So if you want to keep one of the suggested terms, you can use the plus sign to add it to the list of terms. Next to promoting suggested terms, you can also add new terms, delete or reorder them. Next to adding common synonyms for field names in the suggested terms, we're now also adding field renames from visuals in the report to the list of suggested terms. This means that when you change a field name on the axis of a line chart, this will be added as an alternative to the initial field name. Now when I go back into the field synonyms, my rename has been added to the suggested synonyms. This month, we're also introducing a third type of underline to the Q&A question box. In addition to red double underlines for terms that Q&A doesn't understand, and the blue underlines for terms that Q&A does understand, you will see orange dotted underlines for ambiguous terms. An example of an ambiguous term can be when there are two dates in a table. There's purchasing date and delivery date. When asking Q&A a question related to the last year, it might not be clear whether you mean the last year for purchasing or delivery date. The new underline helps distinguish this ambiguity, so you can adjust your question if needed. And last but not least, we've updated the Q&A pop-out. When adding a Q&A button to a report, you will now see the pop-out aligning with the Q&A visual experience. It also contains any suggested questions that you've defined in the Q&A setup. Questions that have been saved to existing Q&A buttons will be consolidated under the suggested questions section in Q&A setup.
In the visualization section, we're happy to announce that the Azure Maps visual is now available for public preview. You can enable this feature in the Preview Feature section of the Options menu. It includes a variety of visualization layers and is integrated with Power BI features like tooltips, color themes, and filter and slicer support. Ricky will show us some of the highlights of this new visual.
Now let's take a look at the Azure Maps visual for Power BI. This visual is being released as an initial preview and provides a rich experience for visualizing data on an interactive map. You can pan, zoom, rotate, and even pitch the map to see your data from different angles, and there's multiple map styles you can use to change the look and feel. You can connect your data to one of two different types of layers. There's the bubble layer, which allows you to show your point data as scaled circles on a map. You can also use the bar chart layer to create 3D bar charts that are the scaled height. These layers allow a maximum of 30,000 points to be rendered. Add additional context to the map by overlaying external data. Use reference layers to render custom GeoJSON data, overlay custom tile layers, or real-time traffic data. Since the Azure Maps visual is in preview, the first thing you'll need to do is enable it in the desktop preview settings. Now that the Azure Maps visual is enabled, you should be able to see the Azure Maps logo in the Visualizations panel. To render data in our map, we then connect our latitude and longitude properties from our dataset. This dataset shows the location of all bike racks inside of Chicago. To give this a better visualization, let's take the community name and use that as the legend, and the total number of bike racks at each installation as the size. As we zoom in, we can see all the different points where there's bike racks and the number of bike racks that are at each location. So now let's take a look at customizing. We can take a look at the bubble layer, which is what's currently displayed on the map, and we can adjust the way things are being scaled. Right now, the smallest bubble size is quite large, so let's make it a little smaller. Another nice option is we can adjust the scaling method. And so in this case, let's try a logarithmic. Now the white outlines of the bubbles are becoming hard to see. So let's take a look at the high contrast outline feature. There we are. There are many other options for changing the layout of the bubbles on the map. One, for example, is the pitch alignment. If we pitch the map, by default, all the bubbles appear on their edge. But if we switch the pitch alignment to map, the bubbles now render flat on top of the map. There's also a zoom scaling method What this does is when you zoom the map out, it makes the bubbles slightly smaller based on the zoom level so that they don't become as crowded. We can also set the minimum and maximum zoom levels in which this layer appears. Since we support multiple ways of rendering the data, you can switch between the different rendering layers based on zoom level by setting the minimum and maximum zoom. Additionally, we see that all the bubbles in this layer or in the map are currently being rendered behind the labels. You can adjust this if you'd like to either have them render above the labels or below the roads, or of course back to being below the labels. Now let's take a look at the bar chart. Now we see 3D bars on top of the map, and we can easily pan and rotate and pitch the map to see our data from different angles. By default, the bars are rendered as cylinders on the map, but we can adjust this to be a box shape if we prefer. We can adjust the height and width bars as we see fit, and there's these two options for scaling the height and width based on zoom level. This helps to ensure that the data is still visible regardless of how far you zoom in or out. Without this, it's very easy for the data to quickly disappear as you zoom out. Similar to the bubble layer, we can also set minimum and maximum zoom levels for the layer, and we can also change the position relative to the labels or roads within the map. When it comes to scaling data, there's a lot of different factors that can be taken into consideration. The general layer settings for the map allow you to specify if you want to allow zero value or negative values to be taken into consideration for the scaling. You can also adjust the minimum and maximum data values used for the scaling range. There's another general layer setting is the ability to change the unselected transparency. To add additional context to the map, we're going to take a GeoJSON file of bike lane data and overlay it on top of the map. Now as we zoom in, we can clearly see where all the main bike lanes are within the city of Chicago and where all the bike racks are located as well. Another way to add additional context is to use the traffic layer. Now we can see real-time traffic data overlaid on top of the map as well. Another way to add additional context is to use a tile layer. In this case, I'm going to make use of the infrared weather data from Azure Maps and overlay that. As we zoom out, we can see the location of heavy clouds and precipitation in the sky. Well, now that we've seen what you can do with the data within the map, let's see what else we can do. Just like any other visual inside of Power BI, we can do filtering and slicing by selecting data in one visual and having the other visual update accordingly. This is just the beginning for the Azure Maps visual. We have many more features planned. Stay tuned.
Next, XViz has released a new version of their MultiAccess Chart with a bevy of highly requested features, including annotations for storytelling, external URL linking, advanced data labels, and access customizations, including enhancements for specific charts like stack charts. Links to more information about this visual and to download it from AppSource can be found in the video description below. We have a couple of updates for you in the modeling section. First, we've heard from many financial professionals that they want DAX to support Excel's built-in financial functions. So this month, we've added 49 of them to DAX. Jeroen will walk us through these new additions.
Okay, so this month we're adding many financial functions to DAX 49 to be exact. These financial functions are based on what is available in Excel. They follow the same signature as their Excel counterparts, so if you have worked with the financial functions in Excel, you should feel right at home. Included are functions like FV to calculate future value, PV to calculate present value, and many others. The list is here in this report, but also you will find the full list in the blog post. Let me quickly show you how to use FV to calculate the future value of an investment for which we make monthly payments. I'll start by creating a new measure called future value, which calls the FV function. This is one of the new functions. This investment has an annual interest rate of 6%, but since we're doing monthly payments I divided by 12 for 10 payments with a payment of 200 and a present value of 500. Now the payments are due at the end of the period, which is the default setting. If you want to switch that, you can change the last parameter to 1 to change it to the beginning of the period. So let me just create that measure, and also since I know this is going to be a monetary value, I'm going to change the format string to currency and the number of decimals to 2. So with that, I now have my measure future value with the formatting settings. And now let me just display the future value of this investment on the report. I'll grab a card, drop the future value measure that I just created on there, and change the display units to none, and you can see this is the future value of the investment we've just calculated using just one function call to the FV function here in DAX. So as I said, there are 49 new financial functions in DAX being added this month, so there's a lot more to explore.
We're also happy to announce that Model View enabled for live connected sources is now generally available. We're also including a couple of updates to the feature. First, if you're connected to a multidimensional source or an older version of AS, relationship lines will be displayed with column information hidden. And second, if you have display folders and are viewing a model with translated captions, your display folders will now show those caption names. Next, in the data preparation section, we've added a global option to disable automatic type detection. When working against schemaless data sources like files or web pages, Power Query will automatically detect column headers and types based on the data. It has been possible to disable this automatic type detection as a current file option. Now we're introducing a global option that allows users to disable automatic header and type detection against schemaless sources. This new option can be found under the Options dialog in the Data Load section. We also have a Power BI template available for you on AppSource. Template apps allow you to save time by connecting your own data to a pre-built report that you can personalize and share. This month, Mac Software has released their YouTube Analytics template app, which allows YouTube channel owners and contributors to identify and analyze their content performance across time through data received from comments and feedback. This report is meant for both enterprise and independent channel owners who want to gauge their channel and campaign performance across time. If you're interested in trying out this template app, please check out the link in the video description below. Lastly, we are excited to announce that we've added support for external tool extensibility, allowing Power BI Desktop to provide additional value beyond its core functionality. Christian will show us a demo of this powerful new feature.
Hello everyone, I'm Christian Wade and I'm the Program Management Lead for Semantic Modeling in Power BI. I'm going to click on the External Tools ribbon, and having installed these external tools separately, they appear on the External Tools ribbon. We're very grateful to Daniel Ottick here for having built the External Tools ribbon as part of the Power BI Contributor Program. I'm going to go ahead and launch Tabular Editor, which is a great semantic modeling tool, and it's immediately connected to the Analysis Services engine running right behind Power BI Desktop. I can use this for all sorts of advanced semantic modeling scenarios, such as calculation groups for calculation reusability across all of the measures in the data set, and with a large semantic model there could literally be hundreds. So this is really, really useful. I'm going to, in this case, just create a display folder for these measures. And when I click save, I'd like you to keep an eye here on the field list on the right hand side. You can see that we get real-time updates of the field list based on changes we make in Tabular Editor. So you can have Tabular Editor on one monitor and Power BI Desktop on another monitor and validate the semantic modeling changes that you make in real time. Fantastic. We can also launch DAX Studio, authored by Darren Gosbell, to author and optimize DAX calculations and queries. I now want to deploy a new version of this dataset to an existing version that's already in the Power BI service. Since this dataset uses incremental refresh the regular publish flow would lose the historical data and potentially take a couple of hours to refresh all that historical data. Well, luckily we have an app for that too. It's the ALM Toolkit. Here you can see the workspace URL that's exposed for the XMLA endpoint. So this is a schema comparison tool for Power BI datasets. And here we have the game table. I do not want to make any changes to that because I don't want to lose the historical data. I'll go ahead and skip it. In fact, all of these objects here I'm not ready to deploy, so I'll go ahead and skip all of those. Validate the selection to ensure the integrity of the target model. Go ahead and update. So just like that, I've used the external tools feature to launch Tabular Editor, to author a calculation group for DAX calculation reusability, and then incrementally deploy that calculation group whilst retaining historical incremental refresh data.
And that's all for this month. We hope you enjoy the updates, and please keep sending us feedback on what you'd like to see in upcoming releases. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next month.